Order. 5:29 p.m. Welcome to everyone. Hopefully everyone has access or has a copy of the agenda, the minutes, and the proposed meeting calendar for the committee in 2017. I think that's what was in the packet. So members of the public, they're out front, and hopefully members of the committee have their copies available. A review and approval of the agenda. Are there any changes suggested to the agenda as presented? Seeing none, someone willing to move approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Mike, thank you, and support. Amy? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to public comment, and would note that this first public comment period, we have one at the beginning and at the end of the meeting. This first public comment period is related to items being discussed during today's meeting agenda. You will see, given the nature of the agenda this evening, which includes discussion of the selected solid waste management system, siting criteria, and the implementation plan, it's a pretty broad-based, comprehensive agenda. So I'm guessing that most comments, presumably, would be pertinent to the agenda this evening. So is there anyone at this time who would like to address the committee? And if you wouldn't mind coming forward, would appreciate to the podium and introduce yourself before your comments. Would ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes. Would appreciate that. You do have the ability to speak once at each public comment period, but ask that you limit it to your one appearance during each of the public comment times, if that makes sense. Yep. So please.
Very good. I am Fred Shadko. I'm one of the township trustees again, after yesterday, in Northville Township. The legislation that authorized this committee and defined its responsibilities was created by the state to protect the residents while assuring solid waste disposal capacity and establish aggressive waste reduction goals. There's a copy of this being passed around. With the recent withdrawal of the expansion request that initiated this committee, there is no reason that this plan should contain language that would allow either a new dump adjacent to Arbor Hills or an expansion of Arbor Hills. It may be tempting to put in a shortcut to expansion if and when a request for expansion is received in the future without convening the state mandated committee, but that would clearly violate the intent of the law. The property acquired by Arbor Hills' operator for a new landfill site is adjacent to homes, parks, schools, and businesses. Densely populated subdivisions are within 1,000 feet. Children try to walk to a school that is a mere 4,000 feet from the existing dump. There are days the children cannot even go outside the building for recess or athletics because of the odors. On the EPA website, the following quote: increases in risk of adverse health effects, including low birth weight, birth defects, and certain type of cancers, have been reported near individual landfill sites and in some multi-site studies. Kermit the Frog saying that it's hard to be green, and it is hard, but a 10% annual reduction in landfill waste will get you to zero by 2040. There is ample capacity already under contract for the foreseeable future. Do you want Washtenaw County to be known as the site of the largest garbage dump in the country? Do you really want that on your conscience? How would you explain it to your children? The decision rests with you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the committee at this time? Yes, please.
Robert McCausland, 17258 Hilltop View Drive in Northville Township, about a mile and a half from the existing landfill. Every time I come out to Washtenaw County, I got a good feeling. We're neighbors, and I kind of applaud the way you guys do business. It's nice, you know, we live in Wayne County, and it's a little bit different, it's more industrial, we have to put up with a lot of things to get a quality of life. I moved to Northfield Township for a quality of life, knowing that the existing dump was there. Knowing that Washtenaw County had it under control, I felt confident that Washtenaw County would be a good steward of the property. Since I've lived at my house for 15 years, and the impact that this landfill has had on my quality of life, I don't feel it's being a good steward. The impact of the roads by the trucks that carry the loads to the landfill impacts our whole community. If you're familiar with our community, and I know I invited a lot of people out last time that we met, we got 5 mile, 6 mile, and 7 mile. Them are east and west roads. 275 is the feeder road. Now, if you're a truck driver and you're coming somewhere from Toronto, and you might be under a date, you might be under a guideline to pull that load in a certain time, they're gonna take a shortcut, and they do, because if they come up 14, they know there might be some kind of heavy traffic situation. So what's happened is, the feeder roads have just become back roads for the landfill. And, we know it's a business and they have to stay in business, but we all need to survive together. We need to have respect, mutual, and the quality of life is probably the biggest impact for the kids. Our schools are on those main roads, and I just hate to see the day that we're gonna have a problem there. It's something I want you to take into consideration, so we can all work together, try to get the impact lessened from the landfill. And I know your solid waste planning. I read your documents. It's hard to get, like Fred said, it's hard to be green. My wife brings home recycling from work because they don't recycle at a commercial venue. So she brings it home because we recycle in Northfield Township. So it doesn't take a lot, it just takes a little bit of effort. And I hope we go the extra mile here to try to get a good result of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, we'll call that public comment period closed and move on to the review and approval of the minutes of our last meeting from October 12th. Is someone willing to move approval of those minutes as presented? Move, Nancy, thank you. Support. Second. Support all over the place. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor of the minutes as presented for October 12th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Thank you, staff, for pulling those together. On to old business. This is where we get to the heart of the agenda. And we'll begin this evening with a review of the drafted plan sections to date. Turn it over to Anna.
So thank you everyone who did your homework. We were reviewing sections of the plan that were drafted. These were the sections that you were provided that were updated. These are primarily descriptive sections of the text, so not a whole lot of data, but more describing all the things that we walked through leading up until the past month of meetings, which I will show you. These sections were developed from our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, the SWOT analysis, the public feedback survey, looking at the model about effective municipal programs. A lot of the written text was from the goals and objectives that we worked to develop. And then other information from communities such as data and just understanding what their programs do. So these were the sections that were drafted and we were presented, and then I ordered them in a way to help the flow go a little bit better, because the flow of the plan is a little bit clunky, to say the least. So hopefully this made easy reading for you guys to get through. So that's where we were. The feedback that was provided ahead of the meeting primarily was minor edits and wording suggestions. There was one spot to have an additional explanation. It was specific about the when we reviewed the model of, you know, what's an effective program look like, and we ranked it higher, lower, medium. It just needed a little more explanation in the text. And then there was some suggestions on formatting. But that was the majority of it. Most of it was thumbs up. This looks good. This reflects what we talked about. So people who did respond seemed satisfied. So I took that as a good sign. So at this point, want to make sure we capture any other comments if people didn't get a chance to respond ahead of the meeting. If you had any point or comment or thought or suggestion, now's the time. And then the one thing that we do want to discuss is language around waste to energy facilities. So while we hold that, and I'll gather any other comments if there are any.
And just to be clear, we are not taking any formal action this evening.
No.
On this as presented, and just to comment on the draft as it stands.
Correct.
Okay.
What I would like to hear is, this is looking good, and so when you see it again in a formal final draft document, you're gonna feel okay about it. And then you'll approve the whole document together.
Comments, questions?
All right, well, and I mean, this isn't the end. If you think of something afterwards, or you went back through it and you saw a note, you know, please let me know, but we wanted to make sure we keep the process moving. Okay, so waste energy facilities, there were a couple comments about that. And so we just wanted to have a discussion here with the committee. So one comment was related to, waste energy is a common practice in Europe, and it's an alternative approach to the diversion of waste, and it might be able to get rid of waste that we don't typically get rid of, or that's bulky, I guess, chairs, couches, mattresses. So that was one suggestion, and considering it as an alternative. Another suggestion was just enhancing the language to show the impacts, the costs, kind of what does waste energy actually mean. So it was just enhancing the language that's currently there. And then the other comment was, which I can't find it right in front of me, well, just, does the plan state that, we would even entertain an idea of citing such a facility in the county at all? And if we did, does the criteria match for that? So those were the three comments that we had. There is language in the plan, and I put it up on the screen for you, that basically, so it's in the current plan, and I put it into the proposed language. In short, the current plan says we don't want to do waste energy. We don't think it's the right fit for Washtenaw County for all these different reasons. So, we're basically not considering it as an alternative to be employed here in Washtenaw County. So this is the current language. And some of the downsides that are pointed out here of waste energy facilities are, there's none already in the county, so we don't have any. The siting, construction, and operation of these are usually cost prohibitive. Given that there's landfill space available and capacity available, which we know to be true, it doesn't seem necessary to have this technology in place. And then there's just additional impacts around pollution and hazards associated with it. So I raised it because somebody raised it of should we consider it, and so we wanted to bring this to the group and have a discussion about it. Any comments on on this or the way that we should proceed? This is how it's written in the updated draft that you read. So I guess it could be as easy as, does this sound good? Should we have further discussion about it?
So does waste to energy include the idea of using like septage disposal?
Biodigesters.
Okay, biodigesters. Using septage to help break things down and it turns it into energy and it breaks things down quicker. They do that in St. Clair County.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, YCUA, it's
County Community Utility Authority was incinerating their sludge, but it was too expensive because you have to use a lot of gas, natural gas, to heat up the sludge. So I think they went away from that a few
Well, and
years
this
ago.
wasn't incinerating, this is applying septage into, they inject septage into
Oh,
the facility to help break down the landfill quicker, and they generate energy as a part of this, and it's a septage disposal facility
wet
at the same
cell.
time.
I mean, those terms are generally used separately.
Okay.
From my understanding.
Yep. I would term biodigester. or
Biodigester,
waste-
anaerobic digester, and
Okay.
versus a waste energy facility.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, so I can check definitions, but, just to make sure that's a good question.
Is there a state definition of what incineration or waste to energy is, so we know what we would be saying could not be cited in Washtenaw County? I mean, is there a common definition, given changing technologies and approaches, that would encompass?
I mean, I guess it's in part 115, the actual, the definition that they would use, which would then require you to describe it. I don't have that in front of me, Brian.
Okay. But it's something we could easy enough
Yes.
add in our glossary, if nothing else, so that there'd be a common understanding of what this meant. And if I could just follow up, this statement, what would it practically mean if a waste to energy, assuming the definition is understood, if a waste to energy operator were to approach the county and say, we would like to get to place such a facility in Washtenaw County, what would this language do?
This language would say, thanks but no thanks.
So it would mean that it would just be rejected out of hand, so I just want to be clear, is that what that's?
Yes, and so the way it's listed right now is under alternatives. This committee would review alternatives of what's the selected system. That's the section that we're doing, and so as part of that, you have to evaluate non-selected options. And so this is a non-selected option because from our goals and objectives conversation, we talked about other ways of managing waste, which would be more in the focusing on reduction and reuse versus disposal. So this is the one spot it's listed in. And so it essentially is saying, we don't consider this an option, and it's not our selected system. If somebody came to the county, it could be that, the discussion could be open the plan to discuss it, to amend the plan if such thing wanted to happen. But you'd have to bring this group back together and amend the plan. But the way it stands now, it says, we don't want this in our township, in our county.
Yes, Nancy?
I'd like to lend support to this wording and give an example, because I sensed from a few members of the group that there was interest to embrace incineration for some, like has been done in Europe. But 20-something years ago, there was an incinerator at U of M Hospital and also at many of the Ann Arbor public schools, and those were permitted directly from the state, is my understanding. That the county is not involved with that they have a direct conduit to the state. And all of those situations, the incinerators have since been pulled offline because they were so expensive to operate. The regulations to keep them in compliance were so arduous and expensive. And then just simply the amount of gas that had to be fed into them. When the schools got rid of them, they realized, whoa, we thought that was all heating that we were spending money on, and it was their incinerators. So just a short side story that sometimes it seems like, why are we putting this stuff to waste when we can burn it? But there's a lot of other issues and risks associated with that.
Don't try to lock us out, it doesn't work.
Along the same lines, I'd add that I too support the statement as written. I'd even support stronger language that would make it explicit that we wouldn't allow proposals to go forward, but if the consultant thinks that if you think, Anna, that meets that objective, then fine, with it as is. all I was gonna add was that there are two municipal waste incinerators in the state at this point. One's in Detroit. My organization has worked frequently over the years with some of the residents who live in the neighboring area, and like the folks from Northfield Township and Salem Township who are concerned about the facility they live near. The folks on the east side of Detroit who live near the municipal waste incinerator there suffer from all sorts of air pollution and major nuisance hazards that have affected their quality of life. They've got a lawsuit right now about odor problems that they're having with that facility. So again, the disposal facilities of various types, quite a burden to the folks who live near.
And Mike, in the college center's experience, if you have language that could beef this up, that I don't know if you have it from previous projects or anything.
I don't.
Okay. Just thought you had some nice worded, please stop this because of this.
I could make something up.
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see clarification from, if waste to energy is actually, if we're trying to say incineration, should we just say incineration? I don't want to, because I think that Amy's point, I quickly Googled it over here, and I see it tied into other things, so I don't want to inadvertently say one thing. And if we're really talking about incineration, let's just say that.
Yeah, John.
I just wanted to, I guess, support this wording, but I like that modification. But I also wanted to sort of piggyback on your comment about the process. I think I'm not very clear about the process. So when we come up with this wording for almost anything, I'm not sure what impact it really has in the end. So I thought Brian's example of, so somebody comes, they want to build an incinerator, they come to the county and they say, we want to build an incinerator, and what happens? And what impact does this have on that process?
So they would come to the county, we would say the plan doesn't allow for it. If the county did want to entertain the idea, they would have to reconvene the solid waste planning committee to amend the plan to make it allowable,
So that's,
if they wanted to, but
so that's an option
that's a
of the
lot of
county.
ifs, yeah.
So to be clear, that would be an option of the county to open it. The developer, the incinerator company doesn't have the ability to activate the planning process if they're willing to pay for that process.
So, if you don't mind, I'm just looking at the siting criteria, and so it's technically, right now, and it sounds like we're keeping it the same thing, as an unauthorized disposal type would be a municipal solid waste incinerator. So in here, it says that the only opportunity to change it would be during a 5-year update process, which is mandated by the state, which didn't happen, it has not happened, or on a freestanding plan amendment. And so when we went through this plan amendment process, we put the call out there for any updated facility descriptions, and if somebody at that time said, I want you to consider our incineration request, then I think that would be a time where someone could put it in. Or they could come to us and say, currently, you're inconsistent with what your plan says, you're not allowed to do an incinerator, we want you to consider it, please. We would convene this group, same as we did for this process, because the plan was currently inconsistent with the request that was on the table, and bring it to everybody. Does that make more sense? Or help to clarify?
I think so. Who at the county would that be submitted, who at the county would that be submitted to, and does it involve the commissioners, or, what authority is it?
I think it's still as defined in the plan right now, so I think we're still talking about how that, I don't anticipate there would be a lot of changes, I guess, depending on how the conversation goes here, but the Board of Public Works, which is underneath the Water Resources Commissioner's Office, and the Department of Public Works, the DPW Director, and then the Board of Commissioners.
So it goes through the hierarchy.
The County Board of Public Works is a designated planning agency,
Yeah.
and then they would send a letter to the designated planning agency, the Public Works Department, and then they would ask if the Board of Commissioners would appoint the committee to review that application or that request.
Okay.
So there is a process involving the Board of Commissioners.
Just out of curiosity, has the county received any of these requests since the last plan was
Well,
passed?
From advanced disposal.
For an incinerator or waste energy
Yeah.
facility? Okay. So it's not a common occurrence, I would say. But we would still want to have language to have there in case that does happen.
So, other questions or comments? am I hearing that there seems to be general consensus for the language as presented, removing waste energy and just talking about incineration in a generic sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. So if that sounds okay, at least for now, we've got another chance to revisit this, but there's a general feeling that this is acceptable at this point.
Okay.
Sorry?
Anything else on waste energy? All right, so with the homework that you just did and the draft language, so RRS will work to incorporate that language, and we'll distribute to committee members. I said final review, but I'll just say to look at the updated language based on your comments, and then it'll all be incorporated into a final draft amendment package when we have all the pieces together. So that's next steps on that one. So thank you for your reading efforts over the past month. On to the next item, citing procedure review. So here's what we talked about last time, just as a quick overview. There's a section in the plan that's for citing. And in order to take a closer look, we provided samples of citing criteria or procedures from neighboring counties, both with high and low population densities, to give a cross-section of what these counties do in cases of citing. Noting that Genesee is not a border neighbor, but a county that just went through a plan update. And then other counties, information is available on the DEQ site, so that was the link that was provided. Just to give a quick overview, was several counties clearly prohibit the siting of new facilities if the capacity needs are deemed satisfied by a planning process. So Washtenaw is similar in a few ways, but not exactly the same. It doesn't say that we're not going to site any new facilities, but it does identify that there's enough capacity. So it's similar but not exactly the same. Two counties don't even have a siting review procedure included because they feel they've demonstrated acceptable capacity for disposal. That's exactly the language that it says right there in that section. Is we didn't create a siting review procedure because we don't feel the need to cite because we've got enough stuff going on. Counties with comprehensive siting procedures often involve a separate body than the solid waste planning committee for the review of an application of any new or expanded facilities, including in our county plan as it stands right now. It would be a separate group of people with different types of people appointed to it, and would include members of the public, and also addresses the neighbors of where the proposed site would be, and so that would include those folks as well. And then the detailed siting review procedure. Oh, I just said that. Okay, there we go. They include neighboring communities. Just it should be known bullet points. So here we go. So what did you guys tell us? So here's the feedback from you guys. So there was lots of comments about making sure there's consistency between the plan goals and objectives and the citing criteria. Very much a lot of the common themes that we've had, which are making sure any discussion is inclusive of stakeholders both within and outside of the county. And that includes what I just mentioned about distance from proposed sites, making sure that it's inclusive, that there's participation on the committee from all stakeholders, and to take a look at how the voting on the committee is handled. Right, it's very prescriptive in how it's laid out, and just maybe we should take a closer look at that. Some comments require further clarification, so what can or cannot be included in the citing criteria. We did speak with DEQ last week, and the county has I guess you could say a blank canvas to prepare what you want to prepare, but it's ultimately got to be reviewed by the state, and they have to say it's okay. So, but it seems, when you looked at the variation across the different counties that I provided, there's a lot of variation there, and so I think we can approach it in a way that we see fit. And then there was a comment around making the application process really comprehensive and making sure we're getting history of the company putting forward, and I think the example was if it was a landfill, what are draft closure plans, what are proposal for landfill site closures for other uses, so, rather than just, here's what we wanna do, it's full circle. Here's what we wanna do and here's what we're gonna do later, once the site might not be, operational anymore. A few more comments, comments around requiring the siting to be done, with the amendment process. And I think we'll talk more about that once when we go to the next one. Clarify and define which facilities criteria process applies to, and whether all types of facilities must follow. So it is laid out right now of which facilities it does, but, in reviewing the language, I think the comments that I saw are, we need to define things better and make it more clear, it's a little muddy. And then there was comments about, don't have a siting criteria, use some of those examples of, we know we have enough capacity, therefore we don't need a siting criteria in our plan. And then also comments around restricting requests for expansion or for new facilities. So if somebody comes in once, do you put a limit on, you can only come back once every 5 years or something like that. So that was the feedback that was provided to you guys, and that you provided to me, captured here. So to make sure that if you didn't respond ahead of time, here's your opportunity to add to this, or if you want to expand on any of the comments that were up there, please go ahead.
I just have a question.
Sure.
So, my question is, this relates to siting criteria on many types of facilities, not just landfills. And so, I don't know that it's necessarily possible to say do not have siting criteria, because I don't know that we're able to say, you might be able to say you have capacity for landfill space or something like that, but are you comfortable saying you have capacity for everything when you shouldn't have any criteria then?
Yeah, I think the plan is geared towards thinking about disposal options and not so much about, other types of processing facilities. So I think that's the slant that's there, or it's very focused on, you're going to get rid of your waste, you're gonna need a landfill, this is your option, and that's how it talks about it. But I think that kind of comes up with that, define which facilities we would have a siting process for, and do you need to have different processes for different types of facilities? So I think that's a comment that was made as part of this process. Maybe, did you have something? No, you're just looking, all right. I just didn't hear. Eye contact with your.
I was reading that Genesee example, where they
Okay.
specifically say that they don't think that there should be any criteria established, and they preface it by saying they demonstrate a minimum 10-year capacity. I think with the thought that these plans are supposed to be updated every 5 to 10 years, but I agree with your comment.
And again, yeah, that's what the requirement says, you have to have it for 10 years, so they're meeting that requirement.
In the existing plan, there's a couple places where it says that MDEQ will make the final consistency determination. I mean, that seems out of place. The county in this plan, or the gatekeeper, if a proposal is not consistent with the plan, it doesn't go any further, it doesn't get to the MDEQ. So I'd say if we keep this, citing process, that statement really shouldn't be in there.
I don't remember where that was referenced.
It's on the top of page 3-31, and also on the top of page 3-32.
Well, doesn't that get at the state law issue of, my question to you, because I didn't read all of that part, was, the role of local control in that, and the role of, zoning, site plan review process, they don't have to do any of that, right? Or could we put that in as part of the criteria that they do? Or is it just all get trumped by state law?
I don't think it gets trumped. I think part of the criteria is that you have to, like if you have a checklist that you have to go through, part of it is going and being consistent with local stuff, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think it would trump it.
Because it doesn't really, the current citing criteria, I don't think says that very well, if it does at all.
Okay. I'm just pulling up here. So, let's see, make sure consistency. get an answer, we'll incorporate it into the language. Dave, you're thinking over there.
Yeah, the state, to get a permit approved, the state has to have it basically says, yes, you meet the consistency of the solid waste plan. They have to have that in their permit application, as part of the criteria. So it's part of the regulations with the state.
Right, but if you wanna get an expansion, you get a letter of consistency from the county,
Right.
and you have to have that before you can submit your application to the state. This is deferring the consistent review to the consistency review to the state, which doesn't seem appropriate. And the county does the consistency review, they're the gatekeeper here. At least that's my view of this.
Yeah, I don't know if they put that in there just from the standpoint of what you just said, how that process works, or if they put that in there.
I'm not sure why it's in there.
Yeah.
I guess I read it that the state can overrule it even if the county passes it, but probably some clarification makes sense, so that it's not ambiguous, it can put the question.
It sounds like the DEP would also, not just take it as a yes, it's consistent, they would check the plan that they have filed and see if it's consistent with.
I know of composting facilities in other counties where the local community feels helpless to what's going on, both with the siting of it and with, the implementation of what's going on there, and being able to intervene on their behalf, but even just the siting, so I don't know, I'm sure.
Noted, and we'll follow up on that.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Yeah, John?
Anna, maybe you could clarify also on 3-29, just like in the statement that you read about the incinerators, or maybe Megan, you clarified it. It was having to do with it can only happen during a 5-year update. Well, on that page that was mentioned, 3-29, it says citing new landfills, incinerators, or non-sponsored facilities of any type. Talks about a 5-year update process or a freestanding plan amendment there also. So that, I think that's consistent with the incinerator thing.
That's what I was reading from.
Yep.
But I'm not sure what a freestanding plan amendment is.
That's what
You're
we're
in
doing now.
We're part of the 5-year,
No, you're not.
No, this is a freestanding amendment.
Yeah.
what constitutes freestanding?
It just means we weren't required by the state to, the county wasn't required by the state through a release of, a mandate to update county solid waste management plans. They, as far as I know, have never done that since they did the original plans. But plenty of counties have done amendments because some things have had to change, or facilities have closed, or new facilities are coming in, and so, you still need to be consistent even though the state hasn't required the update. So a freestanding plan amendment can be triggered by a request for expansion, could be, wanting to, I'm trying to think of other recent ones. I know like in Oakland County, somebody wanted to cite a transfer station, so they had to convene the committee. I think there was a and then sometimes it's very simple, it's like a landfill close, you need to change the facility description, so they really, they meet in pretty short order, like a couple of meetings to update, to say yes, and then go through the approval
Okay,
process.
so this is a freestanding.
This is a freestanding, correct.
And the freestanding can happen, sort of relates to a question I asked you by email. Freestanding could happen at any frequency,
As far as I know, I don't think there's restrictions, I'd have to double check that.
so it could happen every year.
It could.
Gives you confidence. Gives you confidence.
But as you can see, we're in the middle of a freestanding amendment process, and quite honestly, with the public comment period, that's 90 days, and then the approval process to all the local units of government, you're looking at easy 2 years worth of time. And it really just depends on, what's being updated or amended at that time. They like to call them amendments, not updates, because they'll call it an update when they say, please update your plan.
Is it good that we call out a 5-year update process or a freestanding plan amendment like that? That's just good wording to have?
I think so, yeah.
We could clarify and say mandated update process, because it's, again, the state calls for the update, we can call for an amendment.
Rather than
It's
call
just
it
very
5 years.
clear,
Yeah,
it's never happened, but the intention of the law is to go every 5 years, they just never enforce
And
that.
it doesn't happen, does it?
Correct.
Right. the 5-year, not necessarily freestanding now that I understand what that is, but what the 5-year means.
I guess that's up to this group to say if you wanna change that to, from the 5-year to just say a mandated update process.
Rather than buses.
I would like it, yeah.
Is that noted?
Yes.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Double
One
noted.
other thing another thing I noticed, it seemed light to me on like the off-site ramifications. So whether it's like truck traffic or routing, like not even like providing that, I couldn't find where you would like have to provide that information as part of, maybe it's in there as part of the application or the impacts of off-site.
Well, let's
It's
see if
definitely
it's
not under like the nuisance mitigation plan that they call for, or under the checklist of minimum criteria that I could find.
Well, they have to provide, I'm just, sorry, I'm reading and looking, on page 335, number 5 talks about they have to show maps, and then looking at item C under 5, existing man-made features such as roads, buildings, structures, high tension towers, pipelines, access roads to the site along all highways and county roads, proposed access point to the site. I think, is that getting at what you were talking about, Amy?
I guess when I was reading that, and now I guess when it says access roads, I was thinking that was more on the site itself versus really understanding the impacts of the trucks and other things and how they chose what routing they chose.
So not just showing what, where they are and where they're going and how they're gonna get there, but also more to the impacts part of it. What are the implications if you use these 5 roads, this means,
The impacts that we have had. Just from the road itself, from the volume and traffic, I mean, it's like a traffic study.
Okay, got that.
Other comments, questions?
And then just to add to that, it does, under nuisance mitigation, it doesn't talk about the roads, but it does talk about other things like litter, odor, dust, noise, vibration, other stuff. Those are probably the most important. So that gets at some of it, but doesn't get at all of it, would be calling out.
The siting committee includes the road commissioner, the drain commissioner, people that would hear those kind of concerns. And it also includes, 2 people from the municipality where the site's proposed, 2 people from any municipality within 3 miles. Then it goes on to say if there's more than 1 municipality within 3 miles, they kind of have to split it up. Each municipality doesn't have their own representatives. And I wonder if each actually should have their own representatives.
Yeah, I mean, it did come up in the comments about, it was specific to, is there too many county people? And should they have less vote? But I don't know if you wanna take away votes, but maybe add on votes.
Yeah, I was thinking about the too many county people, but each one seems to have a purpose.
Definitely.
There's, who would you exclude,
Yeah, I think the suggestion was,
I agree, somebody commented, wasn't it, that you'd end up with a supermajority just with the county employees.
Participation, but not voting necessarily.
vote, yeah, so remove, the suggestion was remove 2 county staff from voting status, but they would still be on the committee.
The other thought could be following, similar to this Salvage planning process, use the same appointment that's done for this process and have recommendation from the DPW, the Board of Public Works, to the Board of Commissioners, and they can appoint representatives from different delegates, so keep it a little bit more open, but identify in more broad terms, I think, like, either Livingston, Livingston suggested something a little bit more appointment and support staff, and it was solid waste industry, city village representative, a little more general, health interests, environmental interests, and those still could be made up of county employees, or county departments, if anyone is interested, but it's really.
That's one thing that was kind of conspicuously lacking from this committee was industry representation. Maybe that's by design, I don't know.
And then, of course, if we did keep it as it is, it needs to be updated, because some of those departments don't exist anymore.
So we should take a closer look at that and see, if there's suggestions of, I'll look in some of the language that says Livingston to see if there's some recommendations there. I think the thing we all like is that it includes, neighboring, people who are impacted by the site. And I think 3 miles is, a very, some of those were like, they're, 500 feet from the location, I'm like, oh, those are too close. I mean, that's not broad enough, so I'm glad that the county's already had a 3 mile radius in there from the site. What else? I'm taking down good notes.
And is this more generally on citing criteria?
Yes.
I guess I was hoping that we would get a feel for whether committee members want citing criteria in, or whether they want a simple statement similar to some of the examples that basically said we don't need any citing criteria because we have capacity. So I don't know if you were going to initiate that, but I am initiating that for
You just did.
general discussion, because I support the latter. I don't think we need citing criteria. And if we do, I think that's when we get into the details of the kind of things that are in here.
But you don't think we need setting criteria for
Incinerators
anything?
or landfill, which
So
is
you're
what
just
this
saying, so
addresses.
this addresses other things,
Yeah, these setting criteria are for what they call sponsored
like
facilities,
transfer facilities.
transfer processing.
Well, then I guess my comment is we need to really call those out, rather than maybe having one. One of the items up there was to clarify which facilities need citing processes, and then which ones don't.
And should there be different citing
And should there be
criteria for
different?
different types of facilities?
Exactly,
And I think
yeah.
that probably needs to happen, it's
Yeah.
not all exactly the same.
'Cause right now
Level
it's-
of detail you want in all of them.
Right now, it's like 30 pages of a bunch of stuff, and it's pretty confusing, at least to me.
So Anna, we would have the authority to create kind of gradations or kind of subcategories, as John is suggesting, based on the type of facility. They have different citing criteria or review committee membership, but potentially based on the type of facility. We have that authority.
I believe so. We will double check that, but I get the sense that that's our discussion with the DOTs currently.
I mean, composting facilities aren't addressed at all in here, and they certainly have a potential for impacting the neighbors. Do we want to put composting facilities in here for siting?
Seems like there should be.
I mean, there's an argument both ways, if it's, well, that's not solid waste, that's recycling, but then again, this addresses some processing and things.
We have a list of facility types, right? So we could refresh ourselves, you could refresh us as to what those are?
Facilities that are included in this plan are municipal solid waste landfills, industrial waste landfills, construction and demolition waste landfill, municipal incinerator ash landfill, municipal solid waste incinerator, processing facilities, which compost facilities are currently under, as well as recycling facilities and other things that are more reuse. Transfer station facility, and then the infamous waste pile categorization, which I still haven't found the definition of that. And clearly we don't wanna have waste piles cited anywhere, so. So those are the different ones that we're required to have facility descriptions of,
So
those
there's
different
5
categories.
major categories. That's pretty easy.
7.
What should be 7? I got landfills, incinerator, process facilities, transfer, and waste piles.
Right, you have multiple types of landfills, which may or may not require different considerations.
Right.
And, well, and one of my questions or concern would be, I don't know that we've done the capacity studies that would need to happen to be able to say which things we do or don't have enough capacity for. Like, how you broke down the landfills,
Mhm.
I don't know that I know that. I mean, we talk about municipal solid waste obviously a lot here. So there might be one or something that we can pull out, but we haven't done all that analysis to know.
Of the need of the different types of landfills. Yeah, no, we haven't created that station.
All that
We've
stuff.
mostly looked at landfill capacity in the region. And we looked at compost in the region, compost sites, we looked at, but yeah, it would need to be more in depth than what's been done thus far. I will say for sanitary landfills, for type 2 landfills, type 2, yes, okay. They're looking at what's already provided to the DEQ, there is sufficient capacity, and then what we're including as the plan is letters saying, from the landfill saying, yes, we have capacity to take your stuff for another 10 years, from the county.
Municipal.
Yes, from municipal. Well, and I would say, let's look at it, if we are interested in breaking it up, I could see then, instead of 30 pages, having 50 to 100 pages for all these different things, so let's see if there's a way to, streamline it, I guess make it, I don't wanna say easy, but make it, simple, to understand and to follow, while having the teeth to make sure that, things are being reviewed adequately and all these considerations that you've all made so far are being taken under consideration as part of the process. All right. Other comments?
I know the meter's kind of running on our timetable and on the dollars allocated for your services for consulting, but I wondered if it might be helpful to the committee to have kind of a summary, as you sort of have done already, but I'm suggesting kind of the pros and cons of some of the different alternatives, particularly as it relates to the ability to cite particularly new landfill capacity within the county, to have an idea of, based on what we already have seen from other communities, here's kind of the range of options. And at least some kind of cursory, here's the kind of the pros and cons of these different approaches, so that we at least can be fairly well informed on what those options are and what the relative trade-offs are of that kind of choice. Does that seem like a worthwhile exercise to undertake for the next?
Yes, and I would maybe, for me personally, I think it might be nice to talk to a community that's recently utilized their citing criteria and how that came about and how it went and, lessons learned kind of a thing. Because I think a lot of these are put into plans and then actually never used. So the pros and cons are based on our interpretation of what we're reading, and the pros and cons, these aren't necessarily pros and cons, but it's just like,
Right.
here's what's there, and here's how it compares to Washtenaw County. This, of course, is not very detailed, but at least was a start. So I think maybe that's a better, is to see who's actually used theirs and what worked or didn't work about that, and maybe what they would change, instead of, more stuff for you guys to read and
Right.
research.
And we could easily track down through DEQ, I'm presuming,
Correct, yeah.
landfill, either new landfill or expansion of landfill over the last 3 to 5 years, and use those as case studies from the relevant counties. It would just help me, I don't know, that it's not a vacuum of information or perspective on it, and we're just kind of not shooting from the hip on this. We kind of carefully thought through, all right, here's the ramifications of this, here's the pros and the negative, possible negative trade-offs of choices.
And I would just say, I would consider having something in there, related to this, rather than not having anything. I mean, it's kind of like one of those better to have than not to have, and so I'm trying to think, you know, when we talk to the DEQ, it's like, if you don't have something, then they're gonna make you do it, and so it's kind of better to have it in there. But, you know, it's the prerogative of this group. It just seems like it's more of a, you know, a cushion if a situation arises where this kind of request comes through, versus not having it. All right, any final comments on that? And then I guess as you're digesting this after the meeting, please feel free to shoot me comments or questions afterwards too. It'll be ongoing, but we'll move forward with the suggestion of finding out more information. I'll start to look at the language based on some of the other comments that you guys made, and we'll have a draft. My plan is to get it to you at least a week ahead of time for the next meeting, so you could read it through before the December meeting. It'll just depend on how long some of this information gathering might take. And then I'll let you know if I'm not going to meet that deadline, but we should be able to have something. All right, moving right along.
Yes.
Implementation plan development. So this is the section of the plan that I think a lot of you would be really excited about, which is what are we gonna do now that you've set all these goals and objectives, now that you've outlined what it is you want to achieve as a county, how are we going to do that? And so I didn't prepare anything, but I shared the section that's currently written up, I think, and the way it was written was we're gonna set up some committees. There was a commercial recycling task force, because remember this was done in 2000 and a lot of commercial recycling wasn't going on at that time, and was a big, you know, untapped resource of diversion. And the other, which was the other committee? I totally spaced.
Intergovernmental Task Force.
Thank you, Intergovernmental Task Force, which still exists today as the Consortium. So success on that one, and I think, you know, the Commercial Recycling Task Force evolved into ongoing programs like the Washtenaw Awards Recognition Program for businesses. So all was not lost, but that was two ways that were listed in the plan for implementation. So this is, you know, we have to put together a timetable that says, you know, how are you gonna implement this plan? How are you gonna check that you're having some success? And so this is really the time to think about what's gonna happen when we're done, and how we're gonna see all the stuff that you guys have been working on come to reality after the plan is gone through. So I didn't get a ton of feedback, but the feedback we did get, I thought was great. You know, obviously the county's most likely gonna take the lead on this, but is gonna need support in a couple of different ways. So some of the suggestions were having a full-time staff person for implementation, budget to support the staff person and related activities, so making sure all of this is well-funded and that you have the right resources. And then set up a series of volunteer task force to assist the county. Similar to some of those committees that were from the last plan, you know, ones that talk about businesses, one that talk about education and outreach, one that talk about maybe intergovernmental working together. So there was those suggestions, and then also looking at how are you going to fund this? And the county can't just make up money out of nowhere, and so what are some other long-term funding sources potential beyond the current sources to be able to support this? So those were some of the feedback that we received ahead of time, that you received to review. So really, I mean, the question for me is I wanna just get your thoughts, and then I will come back with an implementation plan, or a draft anyway, of, you know, what does a successfully implemented solid waste management plan look like to you? 5 years from now, what would you like to be seeing, or what would you like to have happening in the county that's related to what we've put forward in the goals and objectives, and seeing those happen? Sky's the limit. Kurt?
Oh, it looked like I was say something.
Yeah, you did.
I think one of them is, who has the responsibility and the accountability, and who's that accountability to actually get something done?
And all that needs to be laid out in the
Right.
plan, so, you know, the previous, I mean, it lays out pretty much everybody you can think of that's somewhat related to this stuff. The county, the different folks within the county, so the Board of Public Works is an entity that has responsibility, as does county staff. Sorry, I'm just looking for the list. Oh, is it? NDEQ? I think I would know where all this stuff is now. Alright, here we go. You know, local communities, private and public operators, so depending on the, that's for a variety of areas, so like where it says, for example, it'll say, recovery programs, composting, public and private haulers and processors are the responsible people. But I think overall, we're talking about like who's responsible for this plan being enacted.
Right.
And we wanna make sure that that's clearly identified.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say kind of who the cogs are, but yeah, who's ultimately gonna make sure all those different people are doing what they're supposed to do at
Who should it
the
be?
time that they should be doing it.
Who's volunteering? No, I'm just kidding. County, I think, would take the lead, obviously.
No, but I mean, I think that's a good point, because I thought a little bit about this, right? So the process is first, and we have a lot of goals and objectives here in the plan, right? So, I mean, the first step is to prioritize those. When we talk about building task force for implementation, you know, the first step is prioritizing those goals and objectives for the county. So by getting a process together where we say these are the top 3 goals for the following couple of years, and let's develop a task force on developing an implementation plan for each of those 3. I personally feel like it's challenging to have volunteer task force being responsible for developing an implementation plan. I personally feel like that ought to be the responsibility of county employees, bringing in valuable stakeholders that, you know, that specific goal or objective would impact. But trying to get kind of a ad hoc committee of volunteers who all already have full-time positions somewhere to then really work on an implementation plan with a schedule is difficult to do. So I would put the first kind of layers of responsibility back to, you know, an entity at the person, whether it's the recommendation to hire that full-time employee, full-time person, being the key person, but I think some of that structure really needs to be established at the county level. So prioritizing, right, and then once that's prioritized, having kind of staff people at the county flesh out the implementation plan and bring in stakeholders. That is the process I recommend.
What about, hey, oh, sorry, no, you go, Jen.
I just want to say I agree strongly with that. I don't think it's going to be accomplished without the county playing a leadership role in the effort. And to take it a little further, the goals that we have outlined here are they're long range, and that's fine. They're very visionary and aspirational. I think it would be helpful for you know, whoever's leading this to create, perhaps in consultation with volunteers that get brought in and others within the county structure, that some shorter term goals are developed, that action plans get created, some very specific implementation steps get assigned to each of those things, and some metrics to evaluate progress get established. You know, some basic framework for implementing these various things. We've got some great ideas here, and they're going to need all of that, and then some funding and real resources to make it happen.
I was just gonna suggest, I mean, it might just be vocabulary, but, instead of task force, maybe advisory. Because I think you're getting at, it's, you know, it's a lot for people who've got full-time jobs, and maybe if there was, I think the idea is that there's engagement from the community and the community experts, which all of you are, and that's why you're serving on this. And it wouldn't just be you guys, we can expand to be on this group, because you're face it, probably gonna be tired at the end of this process, and you might be on burnout. But I think advisory might be a better way to do it, where it's like, hey, we're working on this, and we could love to get your input, kind of a thing. I know my Jim Fry, who's been here, calls it, his own kitchen cabinet, the people that you go to that are, your feedback, your sounding boards, and also your expertise in your various areas, so. So we could try advisory, if that's okay. Because I think we want engagement from folks, not just the county to, be on their own.
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
I do think this is kind of our one chance to convey to the units of government in Washtenaw County, if we in fact are encouraging the county itself to take a leadership role in this regard, to put forward a strong case to those local units of government to support the work of the county in this regard, which would include long-term funding sources for these sorts of initiatives within the county, to give their full support to intergovernmental cooperation and coordination, and make it clear that there are some expectations in this plan for local units of government to work with Washtenaw County, who is, through this plan, proposing to take a leadership role in seeing this all through. And I'm fearful that if we don't take that kind of more assertive role now, that will be much harder to do at a later point. The other point I wanted to make is that some time ago, Jim Fry gave us that presentation on kind of the key elements of kind of long-term, I think it was recovery success, and kind of outlined some of the key, variables that play to success, and to just revisit those and to be sure that whatever structure we're looking to create is inclusive of those elements that feed a successful program, which do include policy issues as well, that it's more than providing some dollars for programs or some dollars for staff, that it is inclusive of policy initiatives as well, if I remember correctly, and that we be very upfront about that role as well.
Can we interrupt you for a minute? Can we move that podium up to the front and make more chairs across the front, because people don't have any place to sit?
I don't see why not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If everybody will move your chairs all the way across now, then there'll be plenty of room for some more to come in. Put up there by the screen, so it's not in our way. Thank you.
Volunteer.
Yes,
Thank you.
Other comments or questions within the implementation?
Mike had something, metrics and evaluation. I mean, we've got all these goals and objectives, we need to evaluate how we're doing on achieving them. If there is, or if there should be an annual evaluation of how we've done, what we need to improve the next year, something to that effect.
I remember metrics floating up as a theme across all the areas of the plan, and so somewhere giving it additional credibility or emphasis seems appropriate. And whether it's a subcommittee on its own, it seems kind of silly because it's intertwined with everything, but if you don't integrate it, you're just looking at the metrics, maybe that becomes in itself a problem. So I don't short term to say, have some emphasis on developing metrics for measurement of the success of the programs, status of the programs. That doesn't have to be a long-term plan, but it's just some emphasis.
I think we may want to build on your comment there, Nancy. Similar to what Governor Snyder suggested early on, this idea of a dashboard. So you're not trying to measure an infinite number of things, but you're picking kind of what are the key indicators or measures of performance as we establish, and kind of a simple way to report that. And I almost think we want to include in this implementation section a requirement for some kind of annual reporting to the Board of Commissioners and to the general public about how we are doing in regards to implementation of the plan, so there's some accountability and information sharing. And again, hopefully in a way that's reasonably entertaining and actually informative.
Tall orders.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay, yeah, sorry, forget entertainment.
Just read your homework.
Looking at
You're
those now.
gonna have tables upon tables to review. It's thrilling stuff.
Yes, wildly entertaining.
Yes.
Wait, back to puppets. Yes, Nancy suggested some months ago.
That's true.
Yes. Thank you for
Good work on it, Jeff.
So other comments? Is that good for now then, Anna?
I think so, good baseline, I will, take what was there, take, see, just put together some ideas and get it out to you guys for review, and then, I know it's easier to react to something rather than to start from scratch, but I think what you guys identified are, great ideas and a place for me to start, so, thank you.
I think if I could just add to that, I think it's encouraging to hear that people would love to have the county help take the lead. We're definitely already doing that, and I think we're excited to hear that that's something you would like us to continue. I think it's helpful to hear some of those specific things that we could use as we go through this process. So if we're looking at annual reports or metrics or a dashboard or certain pieces like that, that helps us understand a little bit more of what the goals are from this group. So I would encourage you to spend some time thinking about the implementation plan, because that's how we're gonna make this plan successful, as you pointed out, Andy.
Does does the state have a dashboard for, that include, I know they do, does it include salaries, that there's something that you wanna be comparable to with what the state does?
You want to jump?
Yeah, I want to speak on behalf of the staff. Currently, what we have available to us, and today we attended a webinar sponsored by the state, and they were going over the program ReTrack, which is an online reporting system. And they're going to make it available. It's a voluntary / mandatory program for recycling facilities within Washtenaw County or the state of Michigan to fill out. And we can use that for our other purposes also to track some of our programs like the pharmaceutical take-back program, the household hazardous waste program, the shrink wrap program, the zero waste program. We have a lot of programs that we currently have that we could add the metrics to online and provide an annual report that way. So I think we have some of the tools. We have ordinances that we've drafted regarding zero waste and other products that we produce that just don't have a platform. And I think what you're telling us is that put some of this stuff together, edit, make it a little more electric, and we'll roll it out.
Yeah, I don't see much, just on the DEQ's main page, there's not, there's like a scrolling, here's the latest, announcements, but not a dashboard per se, so. But I'm not sure, because of ReTrack being a statewide initiative, they don't have that much data either. So that's why they're not kicking anything out. And then I know this county, you already do a nice annual report with great visuals on your services that you provide in the county coordinated program. So I think maybe it's, maybe if you don't release it once a year, have an ongoing tally. We serve, you have the little counter of, we're up to 7,000 people in our, clean community events and things like that, to make it a little more dynamic, to your point, Brian.
Entertaining.
All right.
So onward to new business, database and tables.
Yes. So I'm gonna spare you the tables today, but I'm just gonna talk about, this is gonna be your homework in the next section that was been drafted to review. I'm gonna send this out again tomorrow morning. You'll have until like the week before, just like you did this time, to look at it. It's a lot of, basically you've seen, I would say 90% of this information. Back in April, when we had Beth Coddington here and David Stead here, they were going through a series of slides that were tables and maps and charts and graphs about data in Washtenaw County. So this is now taking those, putting them into the document, and having some text around them to give them some context. So the sections you're gonna review is the beginning pages of the database, the solid waste disposal areas description, the solid waste collection and transportation description, demographics, so looking at, what's the makeup of the county in a variety of different ways that's gonna be important towards decision making around solid waste planning, and then detailed features of recycling and composting programs. This is kind of the second bulk of, chunk of the plan. I think it's like 20 pages again, but a lot of the formatting is terrible, and it's a lot of it's like a table is on a page, and so, here's the information resources, and then I'll give you your kind of take this into consideration. Most of the information, like I said, was prepared back in early 2016. We've been fine tuning the data since then. And then data sources include SEMCOG, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, the Census, EPA, cranes, and local units of government. So that's where all this information came from. So things to keep in mind as you're looking at this. Don't worry about the formatting. This is a draft document, so the tables were kept very simple. And that's for a reason, because when we get the final draft approved, we want to put it into, we want to graphically make it look nice. And so we'll jazz up the tables, we'll jazz up the text. So don't worry, like, hey, this chart should be 5 inches over here. No, don't worry about that. And that includes the tables, charts, and other images. The labeling on the charts and tables are going to change as we're going through this. So they're going to be generic, like exhibit, X1, X2, just because we don't know what pages they're going to end up on and what sections they're going to be in. And then I'll just say this, again, the plan document does not flow very well. It is not a story. It's a chopped up piece of asking for random things in random ways. So I left this one alone because it's mostly tables and charts. But just don't worry about when you're reading it, like, oh, it would make sense to put this over here. We don't have a say in that. It has to go in a certain way. And I apologize, it doesn't roll right off when you're reading it, it's kind of choppy. So again, you're gonna see these charts, these tables. It's gonna talk about waste generation. It's gonna talk about projections of where waste would be, our landfill, disposal needs. What does the land use look like? What is the employment sector, employment forecast look like? What's the business, snapshot in the county? So all these things that will influence waste generation and diversion in the county are all covered here. So look for that tomorrow. Again, I don't think it should take you that long to go through, just because a lot of it is tables and charts, but it's the next big chunk, and you'll get it tomorrow. Any questions?
Can't wait.
Yeah, I know, I sold it really well, didn't I? Quite honestly, it's my least favorite part. I liked all the other stuff, but that's why we have special people in the office who do charts. So, that'll be emailed to you tomorrow, and then please send it back by 12/9, which I think is the Friday before the next meeting. And of course, I'll send you email reminders, don't you worry. So that's our next item is up, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, great. Which leads us to our proposed meeting calendar for 2017. You should have received that in the packet. This runs, right now, the proposed calendar, this is done so that we can have public notices presented for these upcoming dates for the Open Meetings Act. We may or may not exercise all of these meeting dates. In fact, I would be surprised if we do need all of these, but the idea is to approve them, at least have them on your calendars. Have the county be aware that at least officially these are the dates that have been allocated for these meetings as needed. I think we are asking for a motion to approve this listing of meetings. We did try to be sensitive this time around to various religious holidays as well as secular holidays, and we think we've avoided having the meeting dates on any dates that would complicate life for folks. Someone willing to put forward a motion to approve this listing of meeting dates. And right now, it presumes that all of these meetings would be at this location. Again, it gives us, we have flexibility to move it to other locations as needed, but for now, it's under the assumption that they would be held here.
Same, second Wednesday of every month.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So motion?
So moved.
Here, so moved.
Second.
Second, Andrew, great. Discussion. All in favor of the motion for meeting dates 2017? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Great, thank you. Communications update. Hannah.
Just wanted to, in the last, not this meeting, but the meeting before, 2 meetings ago, and I think even the last meeting, we talked a bit about, I've heard conversation from the committee about, hey, how are we gonna communicate this? How are we gonna make sure, local units are understanding what's going on with the plan update? How will they have a chance to, comment on this? I think one of the questions that came up that I didn't answer last time was, if we're going to each local unit and we're talking about this and need to get their approval, what if they have suggestions right then and there? So we checked with the DEQ to make sure we were following the procedure, and really that's what the 90-day public comment period is for, and so we wanna make sure that's the time we get, feedback from anybody and everybody. If we go to the local unit, they have the option to say, yes, we approve and support this, or no, we don't approve or support this, and that's kind of their action at that time when you're physically at the meeting. So, in order to make sure that everybody gets this information before we show up, that time to say, please approve this, we wanna make sure we're just creating tools that are gonna help to achieve this. So, initial idea is to create a summary sheet, that says, here's what we did, and here's all, here's why we're doing it, and an overview of the changes and updates, kind of the, what does it mean to me? Because, these people are like, great, what's this process, and they wanna understand what it is, so what does it mean to me? We definitely wanna get that to all the local units of government once that's, complete, and then once the draft is complete as well. And then we're also talking about, as many in-person meetings as we can get to. There's a lot of gatherings of different local elected officials, different, coordinators, managers, things like that. So taking advantage of the fact that there's already meetings that we can go to start to talk about this and make sure that people understand the process, they have a chance to ask questions. And so all the information gathered through the public comment period then gets brought back to us, and we either incorporate it, we try to incorporate as much as possible in there, or discuss it and then incorporate the changes that we agree upon, is the way to say that. So that's why that 90-day review period is really critical and really important, so that's what we want to do for communications. Why are we doing this? Again, familiarize the local units with the process, the changes and the updates, allow for feedback to incorporate into the draft plan, and then it just supports the plan approval process. So when we show up to say, hey, we're here to talk about this, it's not the first time people heard about it. I'm talking very specifically to the local units of government. We will, of course, have a 90-day public review period. We will have a public hearing during that time, at least one. I don't have any details for that, but I was trying to be responsive to some of the conversation around how are these other local units gonna know about this? How are they gonna be able to participate? And they've already been notified the plan's open, and so that's already out there. This is our chance to go and say, this is what's been going on, and we'd like to help you understand it, and please ask us any questions. So that's my communications update. Any questions? Yeah, Kurt.
The feedback process, how is that managed, and how is that feedback determined to be incorporated or not in the plan?
Comes to this group, so you get to determine that. Yeah, I mean, if it's a public hearing, we'll have, it's a signage. I don't know if you record it or not. I guess we'll have to get to those details, but do your best to document everything that's being said because it's part of that planning process. Other questions? Comments? Okay. That's not the next agenda item. That's my notes, not yours. Community updates is your next item.
Okay, just to be clear though, what we are planning to do at the December meeting, could you just take a minute and
Thank you.
No,
Nice
put
segue.
that up there.
I know. Well, you always ask, so I created a slide. So we'll be reviewing and discussing updated draft language for the citing procedure. We will be reviewing and discussing draft language for the implementation plan. By review, and hopefully it's more discussion because I'll get it to you ahead of time. I'm promising a week ahead of time to give you at least a week. And so we'll talk about those. And your homework is this time is to review the next sections of the draft plan, and then review any material shared between now and the December meeting to be ready for that discussion. So that's what December's going to look like. After December, I think, given depending on how the discussion goes, this is of course flexible, but we should be at a point where a final document should be starting to come together. And so it's my vision that we should be able to have something pulled together between December and January, so that you're looking at a complete package come January. I'm debating on if you need homework over the holidays, but it might have to happen, so we'll see. So that's it for me on that one.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions about the upcoming timeline? On then the community updates, anything from the committee at the county or state level that's worthy of note?
As I mentioned earlier, we attended a webinar today talking about the legislation or the action of the state to allow online reporting called through ReTrack. It's a software program where processors input their materials, the amount that they're putting into the processing of recyclable materials. It's also available to local units of government, so we can put all of our different program type of materials into that type of ReTrack, so we can put it on available for all to see. So we're going to be following with that, and I think that was one of the problems.
Can you send us a little something on that?
Pardon?
Can you send us a link on that retrack?
Share the plan, right? Or the,
Do we have the one?
The link to retrack?
Yeah.
or copy of PowerPoint?
Yeah, absolutely. The MDQ would have it, I can send you those pictures.
Can you get into the system?
You'd have to register to, include your facility in the
No, I just
system.
wanna know about it, so I can tell other people about it.
Okay, sure.
It's an
Other-
online database, it's really what it is. This is a nice interface to it.
Other updates? If not, let us, any general updates from the members of the committee? Any upcoming birthdays, anniversaries, you want to share?
America Recycles Day, November 15th.
Ah, there you go, major holiday.
And the kickoff of a little thing called hunting season, so it usually gets ignored.
Very good. Well, this leads us to the second public comment period of the evening. This is general public comment, can be related or unrelated to the meeting agenda. Appreciate everyone being here this evening. This is your chance. If you'd like to make a comment, this is the time. I ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes, please, and then speak only once during this comment period. It's not a dialogue at this point, so I ask that you just direct, if you do have comments or questions for us to consider, put those forward, and we're happy to consider those, and can talk to you even privately after the meeting. But this is not a dialogue time, this is a chance for you to offer any comments that you have for the committee. So at this point, we'd open it up to anyone who'd like to come speak. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium and identify yourself before you speak.
I'm not moving it again.
Volunteers.
If you don't mind, I'm actually gonna stand up front. Is that all right with everyone?
Oh, yeah, better yet.
So everybody that came here, took their evenings away from their families to spend the time here. So first I wanted to say, I'd ask this committee to look at these people. They have spent their time here waiting to talk to you. They are humans. Their futures, our futures, and our families' futures are intricately tied to this plan. So please, look at these people, look at these faces, look at how many people are here. If you saw the last meeting, their futures and their livelihoods are tied to what your decision is. Next of all, recognize that the future of Washtenaw County and the brand of Washtenaw County is in your hands. So recognize the importance of that. Next, I want to say Advance has proven to be a dangerous neighbor and has a terrible reputation. We've established the violations, the similar issues across other facilities, the promises that mean nothing, and I want to add a new issue based on employee feedback from Advance. So in this is glassdoor.com. And what this is it's a site in which employees, if you could pass that around. This is information that's readily available. People that are looking for jobs typically go to glassdoor.com to find companies that they are actually looking to work for. So sorry, I have copies for everyone. So I just want to read a few of these, okay, and give you a new perspective about this company that you're entertaining. First one is a driver. The pay is good, not the best compared to other companies in the same market. The benefits are good. There are always hours to be worked. You never get laid off. The cons, very long days. Bosses have no clue about anything. no communication at all, trucks don't get fixed, bad equipment that you are forced to drive even though they say they'll never make you take it out of the yard. Landfill is a disaster waiting to happen. Don't work here unless you have to. Okay? That was posted September 5th, 2016. You can't make this stuff up. The next one, and this is just glass rock, everybody has access to this. Outside sales representative. It's a work from home position, existing account management, convenience, newer company with potential personal growth is the pros. The cons, lack of true management. Typical company where people are placed into positions for whom they know and not what they know, which has led to incompetency and leadership. Truly a company that is so desperate to make revenue that it treats its customers with no respect. Stand behind poor service, high prices, and has continued this poor business model for over 10 years. That the company has not turned a profit. I don't know if that's true or not. Again, this is internal people, I don't know. That was posted September 8th, 2016. Inside salesperson. The job itself isn't hard and the money is pretty good. The co-workers are usually great and I have made some good friends. Management is the cons. Management is pretty much non-existent. The co-workers you can get to stay are great, but there is a large turnover rate. The managers you do have need to be sent to training because it seems like they are not sure how to actually be a manager. And then poor management, we are all disposable. So you can go on the site, this is just the ones that I got, that were initial. But this shows you also a perspective looking inward to the company. Okay, so just another point, and we don't want to be redundant, we want to move forward. And the next things I want you to consider, I want you to consider that Advance has more money than we can ever compete with. Please listen to your conscience. You can make a difference. Each one of you can make a difference. Please care about the impact this will have on people's health, families' nest eggs, value of people's homes, and Washtenaw's reputation and brand. Does Washtenaw want to be known for the largest landfill in the country? Seriously. Washtenaw is better than that. We have some of the best colleges around here. Is this really what we want to stand for? I just asked you to look inward and use your conscience and think about all the people here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Roland Wong. I'm the secretary of the Northville School Board. Want to recognize the fact that Northville Public Schools educates students in Salem Township all the way to Chubb Road, well into Washtenaw County. And so we are involved with educating students in Washtenaw County. And so we're one of the local units of government that should be included in the discussion with respect to the plan. We passed a resolution August 23rd, 2016, unanimously 7-0, whereas the Arbor Hills Landfill, currently located at 6 Mile and Ridge Road in Salem Township, is within the boundaries of the Northville Public Schools, and whereas they're asking to create a new landfill, it is a half a mile east of the Northville's Ridgewood Elementary School is 1/2 mile east of the landfill. There are already problems with respect to odor, traffic, and noise coming from the landfill. It has affected Ridgewood Elementary with respect to the adjustments to the open air exchange and ventilation, and it has caused a nightmare with respect to those issues of truncating recess and traffic problems with respect to the parents and students using Ridgewood Elementary. And these are students that are in Northville Township, but also Salem Township. And so it's an issue that affects the students of Washtenaw. So we really are urging that there are other ways explored to handle the landfill issues of Washtenaw County. It cannot affect the 600 students at Ridgewood Elementary School. It's the largest elementary school in Northville Public Schools. And there are no feasible alternatives for the staff and administration to resolve problems of odor, traffic, and noise generated by the landfill. So whereas, the committee is asking for amending the solid waste plan last amended in 2000, we really think that there should not be any increase or increased use of the landfill to the extent that, you're contemplating any enlargement of that landfill. And it'll only exacerbate the problems of odor, traffic, and noise for the 600 students at Ridgewood, quite a few of them being Washtenaw residents. So we specifically ask that the plan prohibit any further expansion of the landfill or creation or approval of a new landfill in the plan. The motion was unanimously adopted and signed by me as Secretary of the Board. So thank you. And I urge that the planners consider adding Northville Public Schools as a local governmental participant so we can ensure that the welfare of the students are paramount. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Kadir, and I'm a resident of Northville. Psychiatrist with over 40 years of experience. I might be a little bit redundant because I talked to you before. Living in that area is really terrible. I was just passing by the other day, just a couple of days ago, and in the evening, I had to run, literally run. I don't know how the people are living over there. I think that the amount of stress that it is causing, it is going to cause, is going to be monumental. That stress is going to lead to a number of psychiatric as well as medical problems like high blood pressure, heart disease, asthma, autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, a number of things. It leads to mental illness. You're constantly arguing because you got into a situation where you thought that you're walking into a very nice place, which it is nice. Northville is a very nice place. Somebody told me if you want to see the scenery, go to Costa Rica, and I went there, I came back, I thought I don't have to go over there, except if I have to walk by the landfill. I have walked literally every street on Northville. And right now, whatever the size is, you can smell at 5 Mile and Sheldon Road, which is quite far. So if you are going to be our good neighbor, please live with the definition of good neighbor. Good neighbor is that you take care of yourself as well as your neighbors too. So it may not be bhopal, but it is a slow killing of the people, slow making them sick and really shortening their life. So I'm pretty sure that there are other alternatives. So please be a good neighbor, unless the definition of good neighbor has changed. Thank you very much for your consideration.
I'm Marjorie Banner. I'm the treasurer of Northville Township, and I've been listening carefully to your discussions tonight. I'd like to reiterate briefly what Trustee Fred Shadko stated at the beginning of this meeting. With the recent withdrawal of the expansion request that initiated this committee, there is no reason this plan should contain language that would allow either a new dump adjacent to Arbor Hills or an expansion of Arbor Hills. To cite the language in your current plan, which you put up there tonight, Washtenaw County has, quote, abundant capacity for disposal, including contracts with multiple surrounding counties. Other counties prohibit citing in their plans, and Washtenaw County should do the same. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Hi everybody, I'm Amit Harchandani and I
live in Steeplechase Farms. We moved into Steeplechase in 2008, but before we moved there, we researched for good 3 years to decide where we wanted to be in, Plymouth, Northville. I moved here from Shelby Township on the east side, so been living there good 5-6 years in Rochester and Rochester Hills before. But when we moved here, we had no idea what was happening in the neighborhood, right? We looked at Steeplechase, it was a good community. We looked at Northville Hills, it was a great community. Both communities were owned by Toll Brothers, so we decided on moving, but we looked at the houses, but we had no idea, besides the house, there was this big, ginormous sludge pipe that was open and funneling towards Northville and spewing all kinds of crap in the air. Had I known that, I would have never bought not just a house in Steeplechase, I would not buy an apartment in Northville. There I lived in Shelby Township in a, decently $500,000 house. And here we're in a house that's close to $1 million, and this is the quality of life I have to live at? If I had to move, I would move somewhere else besides Northville. I would never live in Northville for that quality of life. At that time, we didn't even have kids. But, so we go about our regular business before we even find out. How we actually found out about it was strange. We would go towards, I'm by 7 Mile and Ridge. So when we get out of the subdivision by 7 Mile, we would get like methane smell. We call Consumers Energy, DTE. Every time we call, no, this is not a gas leak. They would follow up. We called 2-3 times. Every time it was the same thing, same spot where we smell it. And gradually that increased. Instead of being at a particular spot, it started coming into our house, in the backyard, and we're like, there's something wrong. And then recently, like I think last 1.5 years or 2, we find out that this is all resultant of Arbor Hills, and things have gotten worse. So, but I'd like you to consider, and now we have kids, and we built deck and patio in the back, spent a few $100,000 into the house, but you can't get out and have parties outside. What's worse is that even inside the house it smells. Even I'm getting smells from the drains itself of methane. It's so horrible. So anyways, but recently, like 6-8 months ago, last year I was in California, in Silicon Valley, right, Milpitas. So there I'm driving around, I was kind of lost, and I run into the same stench. And that was the Newbie facility in Silicon Valley by Milpitas. And I did some research on them, and basically in California, there were like 44 different dumps that have been closed down. They have no dumps, they have converted all those 44 except for Milpitas Newbie expansion facility and shut everything down. They're a zero waste facility. No dumps allowed. So I would really suggest you do some research. You guys are qualified people. Do some research, find out what could be done, how could we be a zero waste facility. Close this place down. Look at Newbie expansion. They're in the same boat we're in. That's the only one place open in Silicon Valley completely. And that's on the border of Silicon Valley. They want to shut down too. They're the same situation we're in. We gotta look at that, and all the dump that's coming here, I hear is from Toronto. You can't recycle dump in Ontario. They send it here. So we should be imposing taxes on the dump that comes here and not taking trash. Why are we the dumping grounds? So that's what I would propose if I were you. And really, I have a question. Why is your facility or your committee called Solid Waste Planning Committee? It should be Zero Waste Planning Committee. Shut the waste down. Take it off. Let's look at zero waste. This is like 50 years old when people's waste was wood, maybe bricks, concrete. This is outdated. Let's look at zero waste and adopt that.
Yes, yes.
So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
There's a couple of technical items I'd like to address that during your presentation I didn't have a chance to. I appreciate your presentation. It seemed to be pretty thorough and you covered a lot of areas. I appreciate your concern on the impact and the trucks. That's one thing, you know, when you guys, when it goes to planning or let's say any new development would come in. The problem with this development is it's constantly growing. It's not like you're gonna put brick and mortar up and it's just gonna stay that size. This is something that's expanding all the time. And then it never seems to fail that when they're running out of room, they either wanna expand up or expand out. And that's the situation we're in right now. So, you know, I don't know, what is the zoning criteria for a landfill in Washtenaw County?
I don't have an answer to that question, but we're not.
Well, we'll note the questions raised, so.
Again, communication is key on this. I mean, of course, you know, we're kind of grassroots group that just concern neighbors. And if we could be put on the 3-mile list for communication, just like you do, we could adopt that same policy. Any governmental agency within 3 miles. And then we could coordinate through the township. And then we could, instead of everybody trying to run out here at, you know, 6 o'clock, it would definitely help us, and I think you'd get a better result. And we'd be better neighbors for it. It's something that communication does solve a lot of problems. And if you have no problem with that, or if you need something in writing to address that, we could put that in a file and you could probably just add us to the communication list. Again, the impact studies, I think they should probably have an annual, and with all the departments that the county has, it seems like you have these people on staff already, that if you broke these things down, you'd find the expertise already on board. So it wouldn't really be another cost to the county. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nazia and I live in Steeplechase, and I don't really have anything prepared to say because everybody has pretty much covered it. I just wanted to reiterate a little bit about, you know, people's consciousness and just the awareness that you're all human, we're all human, citizens' rights, citizens anywhere, rich, poor, doesn't matter race, what we are, everybody deserves to live in an environment that, you know, is a good, healthy environment. Whether we bought, knowing or not knowing the landfill was there, it still needs to be addressed. You know, some of us don't know the outcome of what was from the landfill, and now we are looking into it. We're doing our homework, we're researching, and we're not gonna let down. If this is gonna take us to Lansing, White House, wherever, we're not gonna stop.
Yes.
This is our families, and you all have families, so you should understand, you know, how we feel and why we feel this way. And just to hope that, you know, we all believe in God, we all know we're gonna die one day, we all know we're either gonna go to heaven or hell. So if you have a good conscience and you care about the new generation, not even us, we don't know 10 years from now what we're gonna develop from this. We don't know what our kids are gonna get. They're young, their cells are much more immature than ours. They might get sicker faster than us, who knows? But do you yourself have a conscience to think of your little child at home and what's gonna happen to your kid if you were in that position? So I know you guys have heard this a lot and we're tired, but want you guys to think about it. Thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Hi, I'm Dave Ferran, I'm a Northville resident, I live in Steeplechase. But I did live in Washtenaw County for about 5 years, back when I was a student. And one of the things I learned when I was living in Ann Arbor in Washtenaw County was recycling. Up till then, I never recycled anything, right? My parents didn't do that. And going to school here and living here, I learned, hey, you gotta recycle, you gotta wash out the bottles, you gotta, I mean, there were separate bins for bottles and paper and cardboard. And, you know, I embraced that environmentalist attitude. I used to go home to my parents going, hey, Mom, Dad, you gotta recycle, where's your recycling bin? Oh, it's in the garage. Well, go get it, we're gonna recycle, you know, I really feel proud that I learned that, living in Washtenaw County. And everywhere I go, I mean, I'm always telling people, what are you throwing that bottle out for? That, you should recycle it, you know, that goes to the landfill somewhere. So, I guess I really appreciate living in Washtenaw County for learning that. But at the same time, I'm a little bit dismayed now. We bought in Steeplechase because we love Ann Arbor, we go there a lot, love to eat there, go to football games, stuff like that. And we said, well, hey, Northville would be great because it's kind of close to Ann Arbor, it's close to our jobs in Detroit area, so we picked it. So I guess I'm just a little bit kind of sad and dismayed that this place I live that sort of made me aware of the environment and recycling houses this dump, which really isn't needed for Washtenaw County. It's all about money and, you know, advanced disposal, paying money, paying whatever people in Salem Township don't have to pay taxes because they generate so much money. So I know why it's there, but it just makes me a little sad because I really think it's not needed, it's not environmentally responsible, and certainly to expand it is ridiculous. I have 2 young kids and it's bad enough to smell it and all that, but I worry about the health effects. So anyways, thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
I want to bring to your attention, we had a meeting last week with Arbor Hills, their supervisor, had everybody at St. John's. And she point blank came in and told us that there is going to be an expansion. The last we heard, they withdrew their expansion, am I not right? So that's why you're hearing things in here tonight, telling you that we don't want the expansion or we don't want the new dump, because she's telling us they're going to get it. So if they haven't re-put it in, I want you to know that that's why everybody is bringing that up tonight.
And in response to that too, at that meeting, we asked her many, many questions. She was brought in as a PR person. And we asked her many, many questions and we got, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. We got no answers. She says, I've only been here since January, I don't know. In a couple of days, we're going to get up a website and we'll have some of these answers. We don't know anything yet.
And she's been there since January.
And she's been there since January. I cannot tell you how many times she was asked a question and she said she didn't know.
She's probably been there longer than January. She's
Right.
been a long-time employee of the company, so that's a baloney. She's been
Well,
there since
different
January.
locations,
Correct.
yes.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
That doesn't exclude her from that, no.
Different locations. She's been in the business for years.
Please.
I'm sorry.
Any other comments?
I just had a few more things I wanted to add for you, if you're
Well,
okay.
actually, if we could just talk offline, because you should only speak once during the public comment. So I'm happy to speak with you afterwards or county
Sure.
staff. Any other public comment? If not, I want to thank all of you for being here this
We
evening.
have one.
We got 'em.
Public comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been a Northville resident since 2003. I'm a physician at the University of Michigan. I've read a lot about the EPA and landfills. If you live within 4.5 kilometers from a landfill, you have a higher incidence of cancers, brain tumors, really bad stuff that can happen to you. When I moved in 2003, I knew there was a landfill. They said the landfill was not going to be expanded. The company came out in 2009 and said they were going to expand it vertically. That was like blown over the Northville residents. We didn't even know about that. And they said with the Northville, with the vertical expansion, they were not going to expand the dump. And now they come back and tell us we're going to expand the dump. That is going against their word. And I mean, legally, we should have some legal responsibility to stop them from doing that, because they're going back in the works. The other thing is when the dump was built, there was only about 500 people out there. There's probably maybe 5,000 people within that radius of that dump now. So the population dynamics are totally different than when the dump was built in 1990. And I think you need to take that into consideration, that there's a lot more people out there versus when the dump was built in 1990.
I just want to anchor that lady said, whatever it takes, I want to ask you first. This is your decision, your county's decision, or it's Lansing Governor Snyder's decision, or White House decision. If you cannot make that decision, then we have to go wherever. We need to go Lansing, or we need to go to White House. We're going to do that until you get this thing shut down. That's my comment.
Any other comments? Seeing none. With just note, thank you to everyone, that our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, December 14th at 5:30 p.m. at this same location. It'll be our blowout holiday extravaganza.
Great, what are you bringing, Brian?
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.